Is the biggest aviation mystery of all time, the disappearance of Malaysian Airlines Flight MH370, about to be solved?
I get goosebumps because I feel this is it.
How can you lose a jetliner? How can it vanish in thin air?
In 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 vanished without a trace, leaving the entire world in shock.
Where everyone was either dead or dying, ran out of fuel, and crashed into the Indian Ocean.
All 239 passengers and crew disappeared, leading to countless theories, desperate searches, and an agonizing mystery that remained unsolved for over a decade.
Things sink, survivors aren't there, and you go from a search and rescue mission to a search and recovery mission.
But now, 11 years later, the wreckage has finally been found, and what was inside is more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. Only 94 human skeletons were recovered, far fewer than the number of people on board. Where are the rest? What really happened in those final moments? This long-awaited discovery might hold the key to the truth, or it might raise even more terrifying questions. Join us as we uncover the shocking details behind one of the greatest aviation mysteries of all time: the mystery of MH370. Before we go into all the details about the discovered skeletons and the site of the actual plane crash, let's talk about how the plane went missing in the first place. On March 8, 2014, 239 passengers and crew boarded a flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. But little they know that this would be the last time they would ever be seen or heard from. For years, countless theories have emerged, yet the true cause of its disappearance remained a mystery. At exactly 12:42 a.m. on March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 took off from runway 32R, beginning what was supposed to be a routine flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. Cleared by air traffic control to climb to 18,000 feet on a direct route to waypoint IGARI, the aircraft seemed to be operating as expected. Aboard the flight were 12 crew members, 2 pilots and 10 cabin crew, all Malaysian citizens, and 227 passengers. The pilot in command, 52-year-old Captain Zaharie Ahmad Shah from Penang, was a highly experienced aviator with 18,365 flight hours. He had been with Malaysia Airlines since 1981, serving as a type rating instructor and examiner since 2007. The co-pilot, 26-year-old First Officer Farik Abdul Hamid, had accumulated 2,763 flight hours. This was his final training flight before he was due to be examined on his next trip. But sadly, this was an opportunity he would never get. The aircraft carried 227 passengers from 14 different countries, including 153 Chinese nationals, among them 19 artists returning from a calligraphy exhibition. Additionally, 20 passengers, 12 from Malaysia and 8 from China, who were employees of Freescale Semiconductor. Alongside the passengers, the flight also carried over 14,000 kilograms of cargo. Now, this cargo the plane was transporting would become one of the speculated causes of the plane's crash. But more on this later on in the video. Scheduled to arrive in Beijing at 6:30 a.m., the flight had an estimated duration of 5 hours and 34 minutes, consuming about 37,200 kilograms of jet fuel. The aircraft carried 49,100 kilograms of fuel, providing a total endurance of 7 hours and 31 minutes, enough to divert to alternate airports in Jinan or Hangzhou if necessary. Shortly after departure, control of the flight was handed over from the airport's air traffic control to Lumpur radar on frequency 132.6 MHz. At 12:46 a.m., Lumpur radar cleared Flight 370 to climb to 35,000 feet. The crew confirmed reaching this altitude at 1:01 a.m. and again at 1:08 a.m. But just minutes later, communication was lost. What happened next remains one of the greatest aviation mysteries in history. The final known transmission from Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, before it vanished from radar, was an automated position report sent via the aircraft communications addressing and reporting system at 1:06 a.m. This message confirmed that the aircraft still had 43,800 kilograms of fuel remaining. At 1:19 a.m., the last verbal communication with air traffic control occurred when Captain Zaharie Ahmad Shah acknowledged the transition from Lumpur radar to Ho Chi Minh ATC. The crew was expected to check in with Ho Chi Minh ATC as the aircraft entered Vietnamese airspace. But sadly, that call never came. Around 1:30 a.m., the captain of another aircraft flying in the same region, attempted to reach Flight 370 using the International Air Distress Frequency at the request of Vietnamese ATC. The captain later reported that he was able to make contact but only heard mumbling and static noises. At 2:39 a.m. and again at 7:13 a.m., attempts were made to contact the cockpit of Flight 370. Both calls went unanswered, but the aircraft's satellite data unit acknowledged them. This was a chilling indication that the plane was still capable of receiving transmissions. It was alive yet silent. At 1:20 p.m., the aircraft appeared on radar screens at the Kuala Lumpur Air Traffic Control Center. Just seconds later, its Mode S transponder signal disappeared. By 1:21, it had vanished entirely from both civilian and military radar screens. This disappearance wasn't due to mechanical failure alone. Air traffic control relies on secondary radar, which depends on an aircraft's transponder to emit signals. Once the transponder stopped functioning, Flight 370 effectively slipped out of sight. However, primary radar used by militaries continued tracking the plane for some time. Estimates suggested that the plane still carried 41,500 kilograms of fuel when it dropped off radar screens. But here's where things get stranger. According to Malaysian military radar, instead of continuing toward Beijing, Flight 370 made a sharp right turn, followed by a left turn that set it on a southwesterly course.
Is yet to be determined. ABC's Gloria Riviere is at the Beijing airport with the latest.
Civilian primary radar at Sultan Ismail Petra Airport corroborated these movements, detecting the aircraft 4 times between 1:30 a.m. and 1:52 a.m. These detections aligned closely with the military's radar data, painting a picture of a deliberate change in trajectory. By 1:52 a.m., Flight 370 passed just south of Penang Island before crossing the Strait of Malacca. Its path traced air route N571, passing near waypoints Phi AMPI, MEKAR, NILAM, and possibly IGOGU. The last confirmed radar detection occurred at 2:22 a.m., roughly 458 kilometers northwest of Penang Airport, at an altitude of 29,500 feet. Now there's a question that's looming large. Why didn't other countries' radars pick up Flight 370 after this point? The answer lies in the sensitive nature of military radar systems. Countries are often reluctant to share detailed information about their capabilities, fearing exposure of vulnerabilities. Indonesia, for example, operates an early warning radar system, but its ATC radar did not register any aircraft using Flight 370's transponder code during this period. While Indonesian military radar tracked the plane earlier, when it was en route to waypoint IGARI, officials provided little clarity on whether they detected it afterward. Thailand and Vietnam also picked up Flight 370 on radar before the transponder ceased functioning. In fact, Vietnam's Deputy Minister of Transport, Pham Quy Tu, revealed that his team noticed the aircraft turning back west and informed Malaysian authorities twice on the same day. Yet despite these alerts, crucial details seem to slip through the cracks. Speculations of the disappearance.
The disappearance of MH370 remains one of the greatest aviation mysteries of all time.
So, what caused Flight 370 to deviate so dramatically from its intended course? Was it a hijacking, a technical malfunction, or something more sinister? Theories abound, but concrete answers remain elusive. Flight 370 was last detected by civilian radar at 1:21 a.m. after its transponder stopped functioning. Hours later, at 2:25 a.m., the aircraft's satellite communication system rebooted and sent a log-on request to Inmarsat's network. For the next 6 hours, the satellite data unit responded to periodic status requests, but no calls from the cockpit were answered. The final handshake occurred at 8:19 a.m., followed by silence. This sequence raises critical questions. Why did the satellite system go offline initially, only to reboot hours later? Was this a deliberate act, or did some catastrophic event temporarily disable the system before it powered back on? And why did the plane continue flying for so long without any word from the crew? One intriguing theory comes from Texas A&M University mathematician Gung Chen, who argues that MH370 likely entered the water vertically. If the plane had hit the surface at any other angle, it would have shattered into countless small pieces, many of which would have been detected by now. This suggests the wreckage may remain intacter, nearly so at great depths beneath the ocean.
I wanted to be the one to solve it. I wanted to find the plane wherever it was.
Among the most controversial theories is the possibility that one of the pilots deliberately diverted the plane into the Indian Ocean as an act of murder-suicide. While Malaysian police investigations found no evidence of recent financial distress or behavioral changes in either pilot, U.S. officials believe someone in the cockpit reprogrammed the autopilot to head south over the Indian Ocean. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, in particular, became a focal point after reports revealed that his home flight simulator contained a simulated route closely matching the projected path of MH370 over the Indian Ocean. These findings were not included in publicly released investigative reports, raising questions about transparency. Retired engineers Jean-Luc Marchand and Patrick Blely further supported this theory in 2023 through detailed analysis. Another plausible explanation involves a power interruption aboard the aircraft. At 1:07 a.m., the SATCOM link responded to a ground-to-air ACARS message. But between 1:07 and 2:03 a.m., power was lost to the satellite data unit.
This piece of equipment that controlled the plane's communication with the satellite.
The loss of communication could have been due to a manual shutdown or a technical malfunction. Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak suggested that the radar transponders and flight data transmission systems were deliberately turned off to conceal the plane's position. Supporting this theory, the SDU rebooted itself at 2:25 a.m., sending a logon request, a sign that power had been restored temporarily. Authorities reviewed the backgrounds of all passengers listed on the manifest, focusing on 2 Iranian men who boarded with stolen passports, 1 Austrian and 1 Italian. However, these individuals were later identified as asylum seekers, and Interpol concluded that the incident was unlikely related to terrorism. Chinese officials also ruled out involvement by Chinese citizens on board, stating there was no connection to destruction or terror attacks. Flight 370 carried approximately 10,806 kilograms of cargo, including lithium-ion batteries weighing 2,453 kilograms.
People's attention to the problems that this plane possessed, a vulnerability.
Investigators questioned handlers of the cargo to rule out sabotage, though the batteries were packaged according to IATA guidelines. Still, lithium-ion batteries have caused fires on other flights, prompting strict regulations. If the batteries ignited mid-flight, they could have led to catastrophic consequences, such as fire or smoke incapacitating the crew. An analysis by the Australian Transport Safety Bureau suggests that an unresponsive crew or hypoxia scenario best explains the available evidence. If the crew became incapacitated due to oxygen deprivation, the aircraft would likely continue flying on autopilot until running out of fuel. After engine flameout, the plane may have entered a spiral dive, crashing into the ocean within 20 nautical miles of where the engines failed. Supporting this theory, the flaperon analysis showed that landing flaps were not extended, indicating a high-speed descent. In May 2018, the ATSB reiterated that the flight was likely not under control when it crashed. Reported sightings? In the days, weeks, and months following the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, the world was captivated by a flurry of reports from ordinary people who claimed to have witnessed something extraordinary. Fishermen, oil rig workers, islanders, and even a British woman sailing across the Indian Ocean came forward with accounts that seemed to offer glimmers of hope, but ultimately deepened the mystery.
It's like an Agatha Christie mystery. Everyone in the manor house is now a suspect.
On March 8, 2014, as the world scrambled for answers, stories began pouring in from unexpected places. Off the coast of Kota Baru, a fisherman recounted spotting an unusually low-flying aircraft, its engines roaring overhead. Was it Flight 370 making an emergency descent, or just another plane passing through? Near Vung Tau, Vietnam, an oil rig worker reported seeing a burning object streaking across the sky, a claim credible enough to prompt Vietnamese authorities to launch a search and rescue mission, though no wreckage was found. Meanwhile, residents of the remote Kuta Huvadhu atoll in the Maldives described witnessing what they believed to be a large commercial jet flying far off course. Months later, a British sailor recounted seeing an aircraft on fire while navigating the Indian Ocean. Despite these vivid descriptions, none of the reports could be substantiated, leaving the world with more questions than answers. As hope waned, governments mobilized one of the largest and most expensive search operations in aviation history. Initially focused on Southeast Asia, The search quickly expanded after satellite data suggested the plane might have traveled thousands of miles into the southern Indian Ocean. From March 18th to April 28th, 19 vessels and 345 military aircraft scoured over 4.6 million square kilometers of ocean, conducting aerial and maritime searches. Despite this massive effort, no conclusive evidence emerged. When surface searches proved fruitless, attention turned to the depths below. A bathymetric survey mapped the seabed, followed by sonar sweeps using specialized equipment. The underwater search zone lay approximately 1,800 kilometers southwest of Perth, Australia, a desolate stretch of water notorious for its treacherous depths and harsh conditions. Coordinated by the Joint Agency Coordination Center, the operation brought together resources from Malaysia, China, and Australia. For nearly 3 years, teams worked tirelessly to locate the lost aircraft. By January 2017, the official search was suspended after costing a staggering $155 million. Of this budget, 86% went toward the underwater search, 10% toward bathymetric surveys, and 4% toward program management.
Well, the search is continuing this morning for the Malaysia Airlines plane which vanished on a flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing.
Malaysia bore the brunt of the financial burden, contributing percent, while Australia covered 32% and China contributed percent. Though billions had been spent, the only tangible evidence recovered consisted of scattered debris washing up along African coastlines. Even as the search officially ended, investigators remained undeterred. Using satellite imagery and drift analysis, the Australian Transport Safety Bureau identified a new area of focus, a 25,000 square kilometer region where Flight 370 might have gone down. This smaller target zone offered renewed hope, but also highlighted the immense challenge of pinpointing a submerged Boeing 777 in the vastness of the Indian Ocean. In January 2018, private marine exploration company Ocean Infinity reignited the search, deploying the Norwegian vessel Seabed Constructor, equipped with 8 autonomous underwater vehicles. Over the following months, the team searched a total area exceeding 112,000 square kilometers. Despite their exhaustive efforts, the contract with the Malaysian government concluded without success on June 9, 2018. 2 years later, in May 2024, Ocean Infinity submitted a fresh proposal to Malaysia's Minister for Transport, Anthony Loke, suggesting another underwater search mission. On December 20, 2024, the Malaysian government announced plans to resume the search under a no-fine, no-fee agreement. This renewed effort would see Ocean Infinity scanning a 15,000 square kilometer patch in the southern Indian Ocean at an estimated cost of $70 million. Payment would only be made if the wreckage were successfully located. Looking back to the early days of the investigation, the Kuala Lumpur Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center was activated at 5:34 hours after communication was lost with the aircraft to coordinate initial search and rescue efforts. These began in the Gulf of Thailand and the South China Sea, but were soon expanded based on emerging radar data indicating that Flight 370 may have turned around before disappearing from radar screens. On March 12th, the chief of the Royal Malaysian Air Force revealed that an unidentified aircraft believed to be Flight 370 had traversed the Malay Peninsula and was last detected on military radar approximately 370 kilometers northwest of Penang. Consequently, the search zone was extended to include the Andaman Sea and Bay of Bengal. Records of signals exchanged between the aircraft and a communications satellite over the Indian Ocean revealed that the plane continued flying for nearly 6 hours after its final radar detection. Analysis of these signals placed the aircraft along one of 2 arcs equidistant from the satellite when its last signal was sent. Authorities initially considered both arcs, but eventually ruled out the northern arc due to its passage through heavily militarized airspace, where such activity would likely have been detected. With that possibility eliminated, the focus shifted to the southern Indian Ocean, west of Australia, one of the most remote and unforgiving places on Earth. On March 17th, Australia took charge of the search, directing efforts to a vast 315,000 square kilometers area southwest of Perth. The region was infamous for rough seas, extreme weather, and deep ocean floors. Satellite images showed possible debris, but when search teams investigated, nothing conclusive was found. As new calculations emerged, the search area was repeatedly adjusted, moving northeast by 1,100 kilometers on March 28th and again on April 4th. From April 2nd to 17th, search teams raced against time to detect the aircraft's underwater locator beacons.
Now you're attached to an umbilical to this thing, so this thing goes up and down and is...
whose batteries were expected to die around April 7. 3 ships, Australia's ADV Ocean Shield, China's Haixun 01, and the UK's HMS Echo were deployed, each equipped with specialized sonar technology. Between April 4th and 8th, they picked up sounds resembling ULB signals. Hopes soared as experts considered the possibility that these signals came from the missing aircraft. But despite weeks of sonar scanning from April 14th to May 28th, no confirmed wreckage was found. The mystery of Flight MH370 remained unsolved. Despite the challenges of searching such a vast area combined with the towed Pinger locator, covering only about 130 square kilometers per day, investigators recorded several acoustic detections between April 4th and 8th, resembling signals from an underwater locator beacon. While unlikely, experts considered the possibility that these signals came from a damaged ULB. However, follow-up sonar searches from April 14th to May 28th found no trace of Flight 370. A report released in March 2015 revealed a critical issue. The battery for the ultra-low battery attached to Flight 370's flight data recorder may have expired in December 2012. This meant the beacon may not have functioned properly, reducing the chances of detecting its signal during the search. By late June 2014, efforts shifted to the next phase, an underwater search along the 7th arc, the last known location where Flight 370 communicated with a satellite. The priority was a section in the southern part of this arc. However, detailed seafloor data was lacking, making navigation difficult. To address this, a survey began in May 2014, mapping approximately 208,000 square kilometers of the ocean floor. The process continued until December 17, 2014, providing crucial data for the deep-sea search that followed. In October 2014, Malaysia, China, and Australia launched an extensive deep-sea search, committing to scanning 120,000 square kilometers of the ocean floor. Specialized vessels equipped with side-scan sonar, multi-beam echo sounders, and video cameras combed the depths. Between January and May 2015, a 4th vessel joined, deploying an autonomous underwater vehicle to explore difficult areas. Despite these efforts and drift modeling after debris was found on Reunion Island, the official search was suspended on January 17, 2017. A year later, in January 2018, the search resumed under a no-fine, no-fee deal with the Malaysian government. Ocean Infinity, using the Norwegian vessel Seabed Constructor and a fleet of 8 AUVs, targeted a refined 25,000 square kilometers area. By May 2018, they had scanned over 112,000 square kilometers, covering 4 designated sites: Site 1, Site 2, Site 3, and Site. However, worsening weather and the contract's expiration forced an end to the search. The data collected was later donated to the Nippon Foundation GEBCO Seabed 2030 project for global ocean mapping. Following the conclusion of the 2018 search, discussions continued about resuming efforts. In March 2019, Malaysia expressed willingness to consider credible leads or proposals for another search. Ocean Infinity remained ready to resume the search, citing its experience from previous missions, particularly the successful location of the Argentinian submarine A.R.A. San Juan. By March 2022, Ocean Infinity committed to restarting the search in 2023 or 2024, pending approval by the Malaysian government. CEO Oliver Plunkett hoped to use Ocean Infinity's new Armada vessel for the mission, though Malaysia requested additional evidence before approving further searches. Days before the 10th anniversary of the disappearance in March 2024, Malaysia announced plans to consult with Australia regarding another expedition by Ocean Infinity. In December 2024, the Malaysian government agreed in principle to continue the search, committing $70 million for the operation, again on a no-fine, no-fee basis. On February 25, 2025, Transport Minister Anthony Loke confirmed that Ocean Infinity had officially resumed the search. Meanwhile, marine debris discoveries provided some clues. By October 2017, 20 pieces believed to originate from Flight 370 were recovered from beaches in the Western Indian Ocean. Among these, the first positively identified item, a right flaperon, was found in July 2015 on Reunion Island. Serial numbers on internal components linked it definitively to Flight 370. Other significant finds included parts of the right stabilizer and right wing, discovered off Mozambique in 2016.
Cameraman, please.
These discoveries aligned with drift models conducted by the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization, reinforcing their origin from the crash site near 35.6 degrees south, 92.8 degrees east. Despite these findings, questions remain about the plane's final moments. Texas A&M University mathematics professor Gung Chen suggested that the aircraft might have entered the water vertically, explaining why larger debris rather than scattered fragments were found. By October 2017, 20 pieces of debris believed to be from Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 had been recovered from beaches in the Western Indian Ocean. Of these, 18 items were identified as very likely or almost certain to originate from MH370, while the remaining 2 were assessed as probably belonging to the missing aircraft. These discoveries provided critical clues about the crash site and supported the drift models developed by scientists. On August 16, 2017, the Australian Transport Safety Bureau released 2 significant reports. One analyzed satellite imagery captured on March 23, 2014, 2 weeks after MH370 disappeared, and classified 12 objects in the ocean as probably man-made. The second report, conducted by Australia's Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization, performed a drift study of the recovered debris. This analysis pinpointed the crash area with unprecedented precision at 35.6 degrees south, 92.8 degrees east-northeast of the primary 120,000 square kilometers underwater search zone. The Flaperon discovery. The first definitive piece of evidence came in late July 2015 when a right flaperon was discovered on a beach in Saint-André, Réunion, an island in the Western Indian Ocean approximately 4,000 kilometers west of the underwater search area. This trailing edge control surface became the first item positively linked to MH370. The flaperon was transported from Réunion, an overseas department of France, to Toulouse, where it underwent meticulous examination by France's Civil Aviation Accident Investigation Agency, the Bureau of Inquiry and Analysis for Civil Aviation Safety, and a French Defense Ministry laboratory. Investigators from Malaysia also traveled to both Réunion and Toulouse to assist in the analysis.
We'd walked along and seen this thing lying there, so yeah, and then we picked it up and...
On September 3rd, 2015, French officials announced that serial numbers found inside the flaperon, retrieved using a borescope, linked it with certainty to MH370. This discovery sparked renewed interest in the search effort. French police conducted a thorough search of the waters around Réunion for additional debris, uncovering a damaged suitcase initially thought to be connected to the flight. However, authorities later cast doubt on this connection. The location of the flaperon aligns perfectly with CSIRO's drift modeling, which predicts how debris would disperse over 16 months from the suspected crash site off the coast of Australia. Interestingly, researchers examined the barnacles covering the flaperon. These Lepisantifera barnacles grow only underwater and form distinct patterns based on their environment. Analyzing them offered insights into the flaperon's journey across the Indian Ocean. In February 2016, another major breakthrough occurred when Blaine Gibson, an American lawyer searching for MH370 debris, discovered a fragment bearing the stenciled label NOSTEP on a sandbank in the Bazaruto archipelago off Mozambique. Located about 2,000 kilometers southwest of Réunion, this object was sent to Australia for analysis. Experts confirmed it was almost certainly a horizontal stabilizer panel from MH370. Around the same time, Liam Lotter found a gray piece of debris on a beach in southern Mozambique. Initially overlooked, his family alerted authorities after learning about Gibson's find some 300 kilometers away. Further examination revealed the part carried the stenciled code 676EB, identifying it as part of a Boeing 777 flap-track fairing. The lettering matched those used by Malaysia Airlines, making it highly probable that the fragment originated from MH370. Both discoveries aligned with the CSIRO's drift model, reinforcing the theory that the debris drifted thousands of kilometers from the crash site.
We want to have a larger market, not just depending on one major source of market, but a larger.
On March 7, 2016, more debris was discovered on Reunion Island. Described as an unidentified gray item with a blue border, it prompted Malaysian and Australian authorities to send teams to verify its origins. Though inconclusive at the time, the find added to the growing collection of potential MH370 artifacts. South African archaeologist Niels Kruger stumbled upon a gray piece of debris near Mossel Bay. Notably, it bore a partial logo of Rolls-Royce, the manufacturer of MH370's engines. The Malaysian Ministry of Transport acknowledged the possibility that it might belong to the missing aircraft. Another piece of possible debris, believed to come from the interior of the aircraft, was found on Rodrigues, an island in Mauritius. By May 11, 2016, Australian authorities determined that this item, along with the one from South Africa, was almost certainly from MH370. A piece of debris found on Pemba Island, off the coast of Tanzania, further expanded the geographic scope of MH370-related finds. After initial examinations, Malaysia's Transport Ministry confirmed on September 15, 2016, that the fragment, a section of the aircraft's outboard flap, belonged to MH370. In November 2016, families of the victims announced plans to conduct their own debris search along the coast of Madagascar in December. Their efforts yielded results. Between December 2016 and August 2018, they recovered 5 pieces of debris believed to be from MH370. These fragments were handed over to Malaysian Transport Minister Anthony Loke in November 2018 for further analysis. But ultimately, the site of the plane crash itself remains a mystery to this very day. While the recovery of marine debris has provided valuable evidence about MH370's fate, many questions remain unanswered. Each new discovery brings us closer to understanding what happened to the ill-fated flight, yet the full truth continues to elude investigators. Do you believe we'll get an answer someday to this discovery, or do you think otherwise?
This was found washed ashore, and it's probably interior cabin debris.
Share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the following video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.